She stood frozen in the doorway, keys still in her hand, staring at the woman draped across Minjun's chest on their couch. The woman's legs tangled with his. A dark purple hickey bloomed just below his jawline. Another on his collarbone, visible where his shirt had fallen open. Jasmine. His voice was flat. Not surprised. Not apologetic. The woman didn't move. Didn't even look guilty. "You're home early," he said. That's when Jasmine saw the remote in his hand, the half-eaten popcorn bowl, the way this stranger's fingers traced lazy circles on his stomach like she belonged there. Like Jasmine was the intruder in her own apartment. "What the hell is this?" The words came out strangled, barely above a whisper. Minjun shifted, but he didn't push the woman away. "What does it look like?" The woman finally looked at Jasmine then, a slow, deliberate assessment. She smiled. Actually smiled. Jasmine's hands shook so badly the keys clattered to the floor. "Get out." "Jasmine. I said get the hell out." Her voice cracked. "Both of you." Minjun stood slowly, his hand briefly touching the woman's shoulder. That small gesture, that casual intimacy, split something open inside Jasmine's chest. The woman gathered her things without rushing, like she had all the time in the world, like she'd be back. And maybe she would be. The door clicked shut behind her, and Jasmine was alone with the man she'd once believed was her forever. If you're already hooked and want to see how this all fell apart, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a like on this video, and comment below what time it is where you're watching from and what city or country you're in. Trust me, you'll want to follow this journey to the end. Jasmine stared at Minjun, really looked at him. When had the warmth disappeared from his eyes? When had they become strangers? "How long?" she asked. He leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. "Does it matter?" "How long?" 3 weeks. Maybe 4. 4 weeks. The same 4 weeks since she'd confessed. Since she'd told him about Philadelphia. "You said you forgave me," Jasmine whispered. "You said we could work through it." "I lied." The words hit like a slap. "Did you really think I could just forget what you did?" There it was. The real wound, still bleeding between them. Jasmine sank onto the arm of the couch, careful not to sit where that woman had been. "I made a mistake." "One mistake, Minjun." "I told you the truth. I came clean." "You cheated on me, Jasmine. You slept with someone else and then came home and looked me in the eyes every day for weeks like nothing happened. Because I was terrified." Her voice rose. "I was terrified of losing you, of this, of us." "Well, congratulations. You lost it anyway." The cruelty in his tone was new. This wasn't her Minjun. Or maybe it was, and she'd just never seen this side of him before. But God, how had they gotten here? 8 months ago, everything had been different. 8 months ago, Jasmine had been carrying groceries up the stairs of their apartment building, 3 bags threatening to tear, when a voice behind her said, "You know elevators exist for a reason, right?" She'd turned to find him. Tall, black hair falling into his eyes, smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Unit 4B. She'd seen him in passing, always polite nods in the hallway, nothing more. "Elevator's broken," she'd said. Again. "Here." He'd taken 2 of her bags without asking. "I'm going up anyway." That was how it started. Simple. Easy. They'd started running into each other more often after that. Morning coffee on the building's front steps before work. Late-night conversations in the hallway when they both came home exhausted. He was a graphic designer working impossible hours. She was trying to build her event planning business from nothing, taking every small gig she could find. 2 people grinding, struggling, trying to build something from dreams and desperation. "I don't have many friends here," he'd admitted one night, sitting on the stairs between their floors at 2 in the morning. "Moved to Atlanta 3 years ago. Still feels like I'm visiting sometimes." I grew up here, Jasmine had said. Still feels like I'm visiting too. He'd laughed at that. A real laugh, the kind that made her want to hear it again. 3 months of friendship. 3 months of slowly realizing that the flutter in her chest when she heard his door open wasn't casual. 3 months before he'd knocked on her door at midnight with Thai food and said, "I need to ask you something." She'd let him in, heart pounding. "What do you want this to be?" he'd asked, gesturing between them. "Us. Because I can't keep pretending I just want to be friends, but if that's all you want, I need to know now. I need to protect myself." The vulnerability in his voice had undone her. "I want more," she'd whispered. "I want you." His kiss had tasted like relief. The first 4 months of dating had been the kind of happiness Jasmine had only read about. Easy laughter. Comfortable silences. The way he'd leave sticky notes on her door when he left for work before she woke up. The way she'd bring him dinner when he was drowning in deadlines. "Move in with me," he'd said on month 5. "My lease is up. Your place is bigger." It makes sense. It had made sense. It had made perfect sense. Until it didn't. Month 7 hit like a storm neither of them saw coming. "You didn't ask about my presentation," he'd said one night, voice tight. Jasmine had looked up from her laptop, confused. "What?" "The client presentation. The one I've been stressed about all week." "You didn't ask how it went." "Oh my God, Minjun, I'm sorry. I've been drowning trying to land this corporate event." "How did it go?" "It was 6 hours ago, Jasmine." The hurt in his voice had been real, and she'd felt terrible. But she'd also been running on 3 hours of sleep, trying to save her struggling business. "I'm sorry," she'd said again. "Really? Tell me about it." But he'd already shut down. Forget it. It kept happening. Small things that felt huge. She'd forget to text back for hours. He'd make dinner and she'd work through it. He started staying up later, going to bed after she was already asleep. "I feel numb," he'd told her one night. "Like I'm screaming and you can't hear me." "What do you need?" Jasmine had asked, desperate. "Tell me what you need and I'll do it. I need to feel like you love me as much as I love you." "I do love you. Minjun, I love you so much." "Then why doesn't it feel like it?" She'd cried that night, promised to do better, to be more present. And she tried. God, she tried. Then Philadelphia happened. Her biggest client yet. A 3-day corporate conference that could make or break her business. She'd told Minjun weeks in advance, made sure he understood how important it was. "I'll call you every night," she'd promised. Every single night. She'd kept that promise. Even when she was running on coffee and adrenaline, coordinating caterers and tech teams and 100 moving pieces, she'd called. But the calls were short. Distracted. "You sound like you don't want to talk to me," he'd said on night 2. "I'm just exhausted, baby. This event is massive. You always have an excuse." "It's not an excuse. It's my job. It's our future. Your future. I'm starting to think I'm not in it." "Don't say that. Don't you dare say that." But he'd kept saying it. Kept texting about feeling ignored, feeling like an afterthought, feeling numb. Those texts, coming while she was managing a crisis with the venue's sound system, while she was fighting to keep everything from falling apart. "Maybe we need a break," he'd texted on the final night. "Maybe you need to focus on work and I need to figure out if I can keep doing this." She'd called him immediately, but he hadn't answered. Texted back, "I'm tired, Jasmine. I'm so tired of fighting for scraps of your attention." That's when she'd gone to the hotel bar. That's when she'd met Marcus. Marcus, who'd listened. Who'd bought her a drink. Who'd made her feel seen for the first time in weeks. She'd told herself she was just venting to a stranger. Told herself the second drink was just to unwind. Told herself following him back to his room was just to keep talking. Every lie she'd told herself shattered the moment his lips touched hers. She'd left his room at 3 in the morning, hating herself. Crying in the elevator. Texting Min-jun that she loved him, that they'd fix everything when she got home, that she was sorry. He'd responded, okay. Just that. Okay. When she'd gotten back to Atlanta, he'd been different. Distant. His friend Sarah had been texting constantly, the girl from his gym that Jasmine had already told him made her uncomfortable. She's just a friend, Min-jun had said, not looking up from his phone. You're texting her at midnight. You're never up at midnight anymore anyway. What do you care? The guilt had been eating Jasmine alive. The secret festering between them, even though he didn't know it yet. 3 weeks she'd carried it. 3 weeks of watching him pull further away, of seeing him smile at his phone when Sarah texted, of feeling their relationship crumble. 3 weeks before she'd broken. I need to tell you something, she'd said. He'd been making coffee, his back to her. What? In Philadelphia. Something happened. He'd gone still. The coffee pot forgotten. I met someone. At the hotel bar. Her voice had broken. We slept together. One night. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Min-jun had set down his mug very carefully. Turned to look at her with eyes that held nothing. Get out, he'd said quietly. Min-jun, please. Get out. She'd locked herself in their bedroom, sobbing. He'd slept on the couch. The next morning, he'd been calmer. Colder. Why? He'd asked. Just tell me why. I thought we were over. Your texts, you wanted a break, you were pulling away. I felt alone and scared and I made the worst decision of my life. So it's my fault. No. God, no. It's my fault. I'm not making excuses. I want you to understand where my head was. He'd stared at her for a long moment. I need time. But time hadn't healed anything. He'd grown more distant, more cold. She tried to give him space while also trying to show him she loved him, wanted to fix things. The push and pull had exhausted them both. Then the hickeys started appearing. She hadn't asked at first. Told herself she didn't have the right, after what she'd done. But then he'd started leaving later, coming home past midnight smelling like someone else's perfume. Who is she? Jasmine had finally asked. Does it matter? The same words he'd said tonight. You had your fun. Why can't I have mine? Now, standing in their apartment with the ghost of another woman still warming the couch, Jasmine felt something shift inside her. I can't do this anymore, she said. Min-jun looked at her. Can't do what? This. Us. Whatever this has become. Her voice was steady despite the tears on her cheeks. I love you. God, I love you so much it's destroying me. But I can't watch you punish me every single day. I can't live in a home that doesn't feel like home anymore. So that's it? You're leaving? I'm ending this. We're over, Min-jun. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or relief. Okay, he said. That word again. Okay. She'd expected him to fight. Expected anger or tears or something. Not this casual acceptance. Okay, she repeated numbly. I'll start looking for a new place. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. That should have been her first clue. Finding a new apartment in Atlanta on her budget was impossible. She'd started looking, but everything was too expensive or too far from her clients. So they'd existed in this horrible limbo. Broken up but still living together. And Min-jun had made it hell. The first time he'd brought the woman home, Jasmine had been in her bedroom. She'd heard the giggling, the low murmur of voices, the unmistakable sounds of kissing in the hallway. She'd put in headphones and cried into her pillow. The second time, she'd been in the kitchen. They'd walked right past her like she was invisible, his hand on the small of the woman's back. Min-jun, Jasmine had said. He'd paused. What? Can you please, not bring her here? While I'm still living here? It's my apartment too. You ended things, remember? The woman, whoever she was that week, had smirked. By the third week, Jasmine had stopped asking. Stopped crying. She'd downloaded dating apps, started going out more, started posting photos with other men just to feel something other than worthless. And it had worked. Kind of. The messages started coming in. Guys asking her out, complimenting her, making her feel wanted again. She'd gone on a few dates. Let herself be taken to dinner, to bars, to comedy shows. Let herself laugh again. That's when Min-jun had started acting strange. Who was that guy you were with on Saturday? He'd asked one morning, voice carefully casual. Jasmine had been making coffee. What guy? I saw your Instagram story. Since when do you check my Instagram? Since when do you date guys who look like they bench press small cars? She'd turned to look at him. Really look at him. Are you seriously asking me this? You bring your girlfriend here every other night. She's not my girlfriend. Then what is she? Someone I'm seeing. Well, congratulations. So am I a multiple someones, actually. She'd expected satisfaction from the flash of pain in his eyes. Instead, it had just made her feel hollow. Does it make you feel better? He'd asked quietly. Replacing me? I'm not replacing you. You can't be replaced when you already left. But the question had burrowed under her skin. Was she trying to replace him? Or was she just trying to forget? The men she'd been seeing were nice enough. Attentive. Present in ways Min-jun hadn't been for months. But none of them were him. None of them knew how she took her coffee. None of them understood why she couldn't watch medical dramas without crying. None of them had ever left sticky notes on her door that said things like, "You're going to kill this presentation today," or "I'm proud of you for trying." One night, she'd come home from a particularly good date to find Min-jun sitting on the couch alone. No woman draped over him. Just him and the blue glow of the TV. "Hey," he'd said. "Hey. Good date?" It was fine. He'd muted the TV. "Jasmine. Can we talk?" Her heart had stuttered. About what? Us. This. All of it. He'd run his hands through his hair, that familiar gesture when he was nervous. "I miss you." "You miss me," she'd repeated flatly. "You miss me while you're bringing other women into our home?" "I know. I know how it looks." But I was angry. I was hurt. Past tense. He'd stood up, moved closer. "I don't know. Maybe. I think we should try to fix this. Fix us." Every cell in her body had wanted to say yes. To fall into his arms and pretend the last few months hadn't happened. But the wounds were still too fresh, too raw. "I need time," she'd said. "I need to heal from everything that happened. From what I did, from what you did. I need time to forget some of it before I can remember why we loved each other in the first place." He'd nodded slowly. "How much time?" "I don't know. A few weeks. Maybe more. I can't put a number on healing, Min-jun." "Okay. I can wait." "What are you thinking right now? Do you think Jasmine should have taken him back immediately, or was she right to ask for time? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you." But Min-jun hadn't waited. Or maybe his version of waiting looked different than hers. Because the next night, the woman was back. Draped over him on the couch again, eating the pasta he'd made, watching movies that used to be their thing. Jasmine had stood in the kitchen, watching them, feeling something inside her crack. She'd locked herself in her room and opened her dating apps. Scheduled 3 dates for the next week. Posted photos with men who weren't Minjun, who'd never be Minjun. Two could play this game. Except it wasn't a game. It was their lives disintegrating in real time. A week passed. Then two. Jasmine couldn't take it anymore. Couldn't take coming home to find him with someone else. Couldn't take the way he'd look at her dating profile over her shoulder in the morning, his jaw tight. She'd knocked on his bedroom door one night. He'd moved into the spare room after they'd officially broken up. Come in. He'd been on his laptop, working on a design project. Glasses on, hair messy. God, she'd missed him. I'm ready, she'd said. To fix things. To try again. Whatever you want to call it. He'd looked up, something unreadable in his expression. Now you're ready. Yes. What changed? I can't watch you with her anymore. I can't keep pretending I'm moving on when every part of me still belongs to you. Minjun had closed his laptop. Come here. She'd sat on the edge of his bed, careful to maintain distance. I'm still hurt, he'd said. About Philadelphia. About everything. I know. And you're still hurt. About me and the women I've been seeing. Yes. So where does that leave us? Trying. It leaves us trying to remember that we loved each other enough to risk this in the first place. He'd reached out, taken her hand. His thumb traced circles on her palm, that old familiar gesture. I don't want to lose you, he'd whispered. I've been trying to convince myself I do. That I'm better off. But I'm not. I'm miserable without you. Me too. They'd talked until 3 in the morning. About Philadelphia, about his retaliation with other women, about the slow deterioration that had started before either of them had cheated. I should have fought harder when things got tough, Jasmine had admitted. Instead of pulling away and focusing only on work. I should have communicated better instead of just shutting down and feeling sorry for myself, Minjun had said. And I definitely shouldn't have kept Sarah around when you told me she made you uncomfortable. I shouldn't have slept with someone else when things got hard. I shouldn't have paraded other women in front of you as punishment. They'd laid out their failures between them like broken glass, examining each sharp edge. Can we fix this? Jasmine had asked. Really fix it? I want to try. But we can't go back to how things were. We need to build something new. Something better. Yeah. Something better. They'd started slowly. Dating again, even though they still lived together. Actual dates where they'd meet up instead of just existing in the same space. Dinners where they'd talk about their days, really talk. Movies where he'd hold her hand. Walks where she'd lean into his shoulder. Therapy. Individual and couples. The therapist had given them tools, communication frameworks, ways to express needs without accusations, methods to de-escalate when emotions ran high. When you spend all weekend with your friends without telling me, Minjun had said in one session, using the scripts they'd learned, I feel unimportant and anxious about our relationship. When you shut down emotionally and stop talking to me, Jasmine had responded, I feel helpless and scared that I'm losing you again. It was hard work. Exhausting work. There were nights when they'd fall back into old patterns, when his numbness would creep back in or when she'd get too absorbed in her business again. But this time, they caught it faster. Corrected course quicker. I'm feeling disconnected, he'd say, and she'd put down her laptop. I need reassurance right now, she'd say, and he'd pull her close and tell her he loved her until she believed it again. 3 months of rebuilding. 3 months of choosing each other every single day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Now, 4 months after they'd officially gotten back together, Jasmine stood in their kitchen making breakfast while Minjun wrapped his arms around her from behind. Good morning, he murmured against her neck. Good morning. She leaned back into him, letting herself melt into the embrace. I have a meeting until 3 today, but I should be home by 4. Want to try that new Thai place for dinner? The one with the rooftop seating? That's the one. She turned in his arms. I'd love that. He kissed her, slow and sweet, and pulled back with a smile. The kind of smile that had first made her fall for him in the hallway of their apartment building. I love you, he said. I love you too. It wasn't perfect. They still had hard days, still stumbled sometimes. But they'd learned to catch each other when they fell. Learned that love wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice they made every morning. If you've made it this far, hit that subscribe button before we get to the end. You won't want to miss what happens next. That evening, the Thai restaurant was everything they'd hoped. Twinkling lights strung across the rooftop, the Atlanta skyline glowing in the distance, perfect weather that made Jasmine grateful to be alive and here and with him. They'd ordered too much food, laughing as they tried to fit all the dishes on their small table. Your eyes are always bigger than your stomach, Minjun teased. Says the man who ordered 3 appetizers. They're for sharing. They're all yours. I know you. He'd grinned, stealing a spring roll from her plate anyway. This was what she'd almost lost. This easy joy, this comfort, this partnership. I have something for you, Minjun said, setting down his chopsticks. It's not my birthday. I know. But I saw it and thought of you. He pulled out a small wrapped box. Jasmine's heart kicked. Minjun. It's not what you think. Just open it. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant, 2 interlocking circles, overlapping but distinct. It reminded me of us, he said, voice soft. 2 separate people who choose to intertwine. Not one absorbed into the other. Just, together. Tears pricked her eyes. It's perfect. He stood, moved behind her to clasp it around her neck. His fingers lingered on her shoulders. Thank you, she whispered. For not giving up on us. Even when I deserved it. We both deserved it. We both earned our way back. The dinner stretched into dessert, into coffee, into lingering over the dregs of their tea just to stay in this moment a little longer. They were walking back to the car when Jasmine's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then froze. Minjun noticed immediately. What's wrong? She stared at the email, reading it 3 times to make sure she understood. Jasmine? I got it, she said, voice barely above a whisper. The convention center contract. The year-long event series. The one I pitched 2 months ago. His face split into a grin. Baby, that's amazing. It's in Seattle. The grin faltered. What? The events are all in Seattle. I'd have to relocate for at least a year, maybe longer if the contract gets renewed. Her hands shook. This is the opportunity I've been working toward for 3 years. This could make my entire career. Minjun took her phone, reading the email himself. She watched emotions flicker across his face. Pride. Fear. Resignation. When do you have to decide? He asked. They want an answer in 2 weeks. He handed back her phone, and in that moment, Jasmine saw their future fracturing again. Different reasons this time, but the same outcome. We'll figure it out, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Will we? They drove home in silence. The joy from dinner evaporated, replaced by the weight of an impossible choice. Her career or her relationship. Her dreams or her love. Inside their apartment, Minjun pulled her close. We survived cheating and breaking up and getting back together, he said. We can survive this too. But Jasmine heard the question underneath his words. Could they really? She touched the necklace at her throat. 2 separate circles choosing to intertwine. But what happened when those circles were pulled apart by 1,000 miles? Talk to me, Minjun said. What are you thinking? She looked up at him, this man she'd almost lost and fought so hard to keep. I'm thinking I have 2 weeks to make a decision that could change everything. Then we have 2 weeks to figure out how to make it work. And if we can't? He cupped her face in his hands. We will. Because the alternative is losing you again, and I'm not strong enough to survive that. His certainty should have comforted her. Instead, it terrified her. Because Jasmine had learned the hard way that love wasn't always enough. That sometimes circumstances and timing and geography could destroy even the strongest foundations. I need to think, she said, pulling away gently. She went into the bedroom, closing the door behind her. Sat on the edge of the bed they now shared again, holding her phone. The email glowed in the darkness. Congratulations, Ms. Carter. We were impressed with your vision and professionalism. We believe you're the perfect fit for this venture. Perfect fit. Her phone buzzed with a text. Min-jun, I love you. We'll figure this out together. I promise. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that they'd survived worse and could survive this too. But as she stared at that email, at the opportunity of a lifetime sitting in her inbox, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that their story wasn't over yet. That they'd only reached the intermission. And the hardest part was still to come. Through the closed door, she heard Min-jun moving around the apartment. Heard him pause outside the bedroom, his shadow visible in the crack beneath the door. He didn't knock. Didn't push. Just waited. The way he'd learned to wait through all their ups and downs. The way she'd learned to reach out instead of pulling away. Jasmine opened the door. Min-jun stood there, 2 mugs of tea in his hands. Her favorite blend that he kept stocked just for her. Thought you might need this, he said. She took the mug, their fingers brushing. Thank you. Can I come in? She nodded, and they sat together on the bed. Not talking. Just existing in the uncertainty together. And maybe, Jasmine thought, that was enough for now. Maybe they didn't need to have all the answers in this moment. Maybe love was also about sitting in the discomfort together, about facing impossible choices as a team instead of as individuals. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He wrapped his arm around her. Outside, Atlanta hummed with life. Inside, 2 people who'd broken apart and fought their way back together faced an uncertain future. But they faced it together. And that, perhaps, was the only certainty that mattered. The necklace at her throat caught the light. 2 circles. Separate but intertwined. The question was, how far could those circles stretch before they broke apart completely? Jasmine didn't have the answer yet. But for the first time in months, she believed they might find it together. Whatever it cost them. Whatever it demanded. Together. The word echoed in the silence between them, a promise and a prayer and a hope all at once. Min-jun's thumb traced circles on her shoulder, that old familiar gesture. 2 weeks, he whispered. 2 weeks, she agreed. And in the space between this moment and that deadline, their entire future hung in the balance. Waiting to be decided. Waiting to be written. Waiting for them to choose, once again, what kind of story they wanted to tell.